Salute Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing. Welcome to round 2, Knicks Celtics preview. We're going to go through our predictions, matchups, X factors, and recap the Knicks' thrilling victory from round 1 against the Pistons. But all eyes on the prize as we look ahead. Man, what a series this is going to be. I'm excited, you're excited, everyone's excited, and let's chop it up for the next hour or two. I predicted the Knicks in 6 against Pistons, so don't go nowhere. You're going to get the best prediction of this series coming up. Smash that like button. You've got the Knicks streets buzzing in this one. Welcome in to the live chat. Questions are piling up already. We're going to get to them as always. Salute to the family. Blessings up. Big up. Knicks Nation, man. The block party is going to be buzzing. The streets are buzzing. And all eyes on Monday. It's going to be the only playoff game on Monday. The first 2 games, 7 p.m. tip. Monday, Wednesday. There'll be a 2-day break after game 2 from Wednesday to Saturday, which is going to be key. I'm going to be talking about, the Knicks feeling out process, the first 2 games. Then we might need to see some major adjustments after the first 2 games, but we take it game by game. We're going to hear from Tom Thibodeau, the players. There were some quotes today that came out. We're going to look at some key things from the Boston side of things as well. We'll probably have some Boston people join us throughout the series, no doubt. We're all going to be looking forward to this. This is the series that many wanted to see last season. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But, at one point or another, these 2 teams were always going to meet. They're on a collision course as well. I'll briefly recap their regular seasons. I think there's a lot of things in common that these 2 teams have, more than people are talking about. Just for example, the home record. You might be quite surprised how similar both teams' home records are. There was only 1 game separating both teams. That's right. The Celtics. I've got to get the Pistons out of my mind because they're in Cancun right now. The C's only won 1 more home game than the New York Knicks all season, and they won 10 more games. 51 Knicks, 61 Celtics, but the Celtics did their damage on the road as well. The New York Knicks are a road warrior, but credit to the Celtics, they obviously did more damage on the road. But the home records are basically identical. So the New York Knicks are going to have to go into Beantown and steal one of these first 2 games to make this a series, right? And we're going to go through all the reasons and the ways that the New York Knicks can do so. I've got some key points down below. Win as many matchups as possible, right? Guard the 3-point line. Obviously, the New York Knicks have gotten killed against the Boston Celtics. They get up a lot of threes. Going to bring up this one here. We've got the 4 regular season games. We're going to put that in the trash in a second, but take a quick look. As Keith Smith tweeted out, you see the 4 games. Obviously, the final game on April 8th was the most competitive game, going to overtime. That was the only game Mitchell Robinson has played for the season against Boston. And obviously it went to overtime. However, Boston weren't at full strength either. Drew Holiday is trending in the right direction, according to Joe Mazzulla. He is day to day, right? So I think his status is still slightly up in the air for game 1. Maybe they play it a little bit more cautious and see how game 1 goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Holiday is ready to go, because obviously Boston have seen what Jalen Brunson is capable of, fam. Brunsim, right? Channeling his inner Kobe, fam, and doing things that not many players can do, but not many players have done when it comes to postseason success, right? And they're going to need Drew Holiday fully healthy to help slow JB down. But of course, we've got headaches of our own. Jason Tatum, right? and his ability to step into these threes will be a big factor, fam. No drop coverage. I think the Knicks did a better job defending the 3-point line in the first round, but obviously the Celtics are posing a brand new threat. This is some footage courtesy of the Celtics creation family and practice as well. That shot's going to be available for Jason Tatum to step around the high pick, step into the three, and Karl Anthony Towns can't be too far back. So guarding the 3-point line is going to be key. How else, fam? Be physical. Be physical. Avoid foul trouble, but be physical. So I guess that is tricky. How the officials are going to call this one is going to be really, really key. Both sides. We've seen Tatum get into some foul trouble against the Knicks as well at times. And one of my keys is to put him in a lot of action. And I do think that Tatum is probably going to be guarding Karl Anthony Towns, right? As we'll take a look at these matchups later, we'll dive in a bit more deeper, and then we'll, continue with the keys, and then finally predictions, right? So don't go nowhere. Smash that like button. I'm starring some great questions in the chat, but welcome in El Tango. Great to see you, Buzzer Beater, Elliot. What's good, Dirty Dancer, Doug Fresh, Michael Drake, AP in the building. Represent. Great to see you guys, man. I can't wait for this series. We finally get this matchup. And as I said, there's a lot of similarities between these two teams, right? Another big stat: Jalen Brunson has joined the Joker, who's in Game 7 right now. We'll keep you up to date, but he joins the Joker, and Jason Tatum is the only 3 players over the last 3 seasons, right, with 15 plus 30-point performances in the postseason. So I think the Celtics will obviously be confident. There's nothing to suggest they won't be confident. However, from what I've seen, there isn't the disrespect that we got from Detroit's fans. I think Boston will know that if they execute, they can win the series. But the respect, I think, of what they've seen Brunson do, and obviously, the company that he's in, joining JT and the Joker, there's only 3 players with 15 30-point games over the last 3 seasons. So, look, the Knicks are capable. You have a closer, you can win any game. You just got to stay in the game, most importantly. And we're going to go through these matchups in the building. Big question, Buzzer Beater says, how can we defeat Boston? First up, man, great question. I'm going to go through a list, and we're going to work through it. It's going to take up probably most of the show, and how the series is going to go. But I'll start by saying I think this series is going to be a lot more free-flowing, for both sides. I think it's going to be a lot more pleasing in terms of 2 teams in the half court. There's not going to be the way Orlando were trying to muck it up against Boston, and there's not going to be the way Detroit were trying to muck things up for the New York Knicks and drag us down, pull us, trying to be too physical. I think these 2 teams are going to play half court. I will be surprised if Boston pick up Brunson full court. I think they'll let us execute. They'll get into our sets half court, and vice versa. So I'm predicting a free-flowing series, and I think it's going to be a lot more pretty. The number one point, Buzzer, to your question, is to guard the 3. Now, the Boston Celtics didn't shoot as many threes in round 1 against Orlando. I haven't looked at a lot of the film. Obviously, Orlando have got size, but I think they probably made a key adjustment, to look out for those trailing threes, the transition threes that Boston like to get, and of course the isolation threes from Tatum specifically. So yeah, the New York Knicks have to guard the 3. Just touching on the stats, right? We'll take a quick look at how pivotal the three is, fam. Boston, number one in the regular season at 3-point attempts, averaging 48 threes for the regular season, man. Obviously, we know it's going to be a lot more slower pace, but the Knicks have to beware of transition threes. But 48 threes is insane. But let's take a look at how many they put up in the playoffs so far. Let me pull this up. That's right. You got to go all the way down, fam. We have Cleveland put up 43 threes in the playoffs. Look at Boston. They're all the way down to 12, fam. 31. They only put up. They only averaged 31 threes. Right. How many did the New York Knicks average? 30. So that's some similarities, man. Whatever Orlando did, like I said, I didn't look at the tape yet. We're obviously going to get a great filling out process. But Orlando did take a game off Boston. They played physical. And obviously to push it to a game 5, they had some success. But Boston will be looking to get more threes up against the New York Knicks. From 48 all the way down to 31. That's a huge drop. Close to the New York Knicks. So the Knicks have to match the 3-point attempts with Boston, but ideally limit, their good looks, right? Next up, rebounds, ladies and gentlemen. Boston killed us in some of these matchups, right? If they miss, you must secure the rebound, fam. You must get that rebound. Tom Thibodeau mentioned it today. James L. Edwards of The Athletic says, ask Tibbs about the Celtics being a really good offensive rebounding team. The amount of threes they shoot leading to long rebounds. Tibbs says it'll be important for the guards to put a body on guys on the perimeter to negate those. So, yeah, that's on Tibbs' radar. It's on my radar. And now it's on your radar, fam. Guarding the three and grabbing the rebound. Right. The Celtics rotation ain't that deep. I bring it up. With Holiday being out recently, they've obviously been playing Torrey Craig a little bit. But off their bench, they might have to play some Horford Coronet lineups. Tillman will be situational. But, yeah, if they're playing dual big lineups, does that make Tibbs have to go dual big lineups? And the rebounding is going to be a really, really big factor in this one. Dirty Dancer says, let's hope the Celtics have some ring rust in game 1. To my point, I think game 1 is always the easiest to steal in any series, any team. I think the adrenaline is going to be there, the filling out process, maybe some butterflies, some jitters, ring rust, like you said, 100% on point. Agree. I think game 1, game 2, the Knicks' best chance to win the series, have success in the series, whatever it may be, man. If the Knicks go down 0-2, then obviously, man, it don't take a genius to figure out that we are going to be, pushing things uphill. We gave you an update on Drew Holiday. I think he'll be ready to go, or he's day to day. But how is that hamstring going to play out over the course of the series? He's going to be the guy guarding Brunson, and Brunson's really going to be making him work. So we are going to know what the status is going to be of Drew Holiday in the series real quick. If he's struggling, Derek White will obviously be the next guy up, and we'll see how that plays out, man. Like I said, the Celtics' depth ain't as deep as some people look at. They do play heavy minutes. The next update from the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, feeling positive about his conditioning, trending toward 100%, according to the man himself. So Jaylen Brown, that is a concern with the knee, coming in with some A tricky end to the season for him with some knee issues, and Drew Holiday with the hamstring. Chris Stapps, it's always a case of, day to day with Chris Stapps as well. But right now he's healthy, he's ready to go. So let's see how it all plays out. AP says, whatever happens, happens. Just make it competitive. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of fans are thinking right now. I'm trying to think more game by game. How can we get success in the first two games and play it by ear? I think we can't get too far ahead. Dirty says, we saw how they cried with Orlando's physicality. Have to get in their head to win. Yeah, I think one of my other keys to the victory is winning as many matchups as possible, guys. Look, Jason Tatum, best player in the series, arguably, tie with Brunson, however way you want to see it. But regardless, if they win that matchup, so be it. But the Knicks have to win more matchups. Can Hart and Porzingis cancel each other out? Can he fluster Porzingis? I'm going to feel like Hart might be the guy to guard Porzingis. We'll see. But I feel like Porzingis will definitely guard Hart. Holiday will guard Jalen. Derek White will most likely guard Mikal Bridges, right? Jaylen Brown, I feel like will guard OG Anunoby. I feel like Jason Tatum will be guarding Cat, as we saw in the final game. And Cat was having a lot of success with the post-ups. And then I feel like, KP will guard Hart. The Brown OG matchup, no disrespect to Jaylen Brown, but I feel like that's a matchup the Knicks have to be looking at and say, all right, if we want to win this series, OG Anunoby is more than capable of suffocating Jaylen Brown. Well, he's going to be guarding Jason Tatum for the most part, but on the offensive side, OG Anunoby is more than capable of driving, getting Jaylen Brown into foul trouble, and being physical, making him work on both sides. Mikal, Derek White, that could be a matchup where it's the flip of a coin. If we get the best version of what we know Mikal Bridges is capable of, that matchup could be the flip of a coin. And obviously Drew Holiday and Jalen Brunson, the Knicks have to be looking at that matchup and saying, if we're going to win that series, Jalen has to win that matchup. Drew Holiday isn't 100%. I'm not convinced. The hamstring's tricky, man. That thing can linger, can hang around. And so, JB, I think, is going to take it strong. And we're going to find out early and see exactly what kind of condition Drew Holiday's in, man. Because he's been seeing these highlights. Great angle. We seem like we have a new angle every day of Jalen Brunson's series clinching three, the crossover, the killer crossover. And we're going to be testing Drew Holiday's hamstrings with that one. If a healthy young buck like Osar Thompson got shook up by Brunson, then it's going to be box office. Seeing those two go head to head, Drew Holiday. Got a lot of respect for Drew Holiday. I think he does get away with some things, being extra physical. But I do feel like, Jalen Brunson, the time is now, man. The time is now. He is built for this. People catching wind now, how special he is. Doug Fresh says we will be tough. Yeah. Mets Nick says everyone on Boston can't hit threes. They can definitely put them up. They can definitely put them up. And our transition defense has to be on point. No whining. If Cat misses a layup, no falling to the ground, slow to get back. We have to guard as a team, man. Another key to the series, guys, is offensively for us to attack Drew Holiday, Tatum, and Brown. Right. For the Celtics to win, those guys are the engine, and putting up points, right? Not disrespecting them as defenders. I'm trying to say that we have to make them work. The more Tatum has to work. And I really like that matchup with Cat on Tatum because Cat was having success with the post-ups. I think the physicality was frustrating Tatum. And quite frankly, I don't think Tatum wants to guard a power forward like Cat all series, And I think Cat has to get his caboose down on the block. Hopefully he can get a few trailing threes, hopefully 4 to 5 threes a game. I think that would be nice, but I think Cat's biggest pathway to success this series, I think, will be on the block, especially if Tatum is guarding him. They might have to switch it up and put Jaylen Brown on Cat. And obviously, Cat KP, we might see that matchup a little bit. I guess it's dependent on Josh Hart, Buzzer says our lack of threes is because our bench doesn't shoot them. I think confidence is key. We do pass up some looks, but guys just have to be willing and able to let it fly. We have to set great screens and free these guys up. Right, we have to get them shook because Boston set great screens. Coronet, Horford. I've talked about some of the illegal screens that they set. It does create separation, for Tatum. At practice today, Brunson was asked if he's been able to celebrate and soak it in after his game-winning shot against the Pistons. JB said it was really cool, but on the second round, man, on to the next. It's not really any time for celebration right now. So he's fully locked in and fully focused. Cat on the Porzingis matchup. Cat says, I love him, man. We came in the league together and we've had a lot of great battles. So like I said, there's a lot of respect between those two. They came up in the same draft. The Knicks were looking at Cat. Obviously, they fell in the lottery and they took Porzingis, but we know both of these guys very well. These guys know each other's games as well. I don't think they'll be matched up on each other a lot. Like I said, I think they'll be looking to put Tatum on Cat, and I think they might hide Porzingis on Josh Hart. We'll see. But if Porzingis is the starting rim protector, he'll have to be closer to the basket, and that is going to leave Josh Hart wide open, and that's going to be one of the biggest things I'm talking about later when it comes to X factors. The uniform schedule is out, guys. The Knicks will be in royal blue, the same way we closed out Game 6 against Boston. Game 2, though, we're in the white association for the home in Game 2. Game 3, we stay in the white association. Game 4, we go to the navy blue statement as well. So that is the uni lineups in the schedule. Obviously, the schedule's on screen. You guys see it. But when it comes to winning this series, guys, we have a closer, right? So, moving on to the next point. The Knicks' best chance is to get one of the first 2 games, right? And then I think we're going to see adjustments potentially after Game 2. I don't think Tibbs is going to come with any major adjustments. Surprise to the first 2 games. I think Tibbs is going to approach it pretty similar to how we defended Detroit. I think they're going to, avoid some of the drop coverage. They're going to hedge, hard hedge, try to recover, and see how that goes. In terms of personnel as well, I do think Cam Payne will likely stay in the rotation. I don't think there'll be any major adjustments until after Game 2. As we take a look at one of the other biggest buckets Jalen Brunson hit on the baseline, man, hugging that baseline, the core strength of JB to get that one up, man. and will us to that victory was unbelievable. Just truly remarkable. I thought he was about to fall over at that point. He somehow kept his balance from his strength and was able to head fake and basically put Schroeder in the weight room in that one. And Jalen Brunson, man, was the hero. So the Knicks, yeah, are focused. They're going into the first two games with that underdog mindset. And I won't be shocked. I won't be shocked if these are two close games and the Knicks have their chance to strike early in this series. What are your thoughts, guys? Not going to give away my prediction. That's for the end of the stream. However, I do think that the Knicks have a fighting chance to win one of these first two games. Buzzer keeps asking me, is Tibbs' job safe? I think you've asked me before, man. I feel like Tibbs could go. I don't think any coach's job safe right now. I don't know any other way to answer that right now. We'll see how this series goes. If the Knicks get mud stomped, then I think Tibbs will be gone. I think if it's a really good competitive series, I could see Tibbs staying around. I think we all kind of know how the series has to go for Tibbs to be able to survive. We have to be competitive. There's no doubt about it, fam. The Knicks aren't a finished product, despite what people say, but our payroll is pretty high, and so we are expected to make this a very competitive series. Everyone should be expecting that. Even the Boston Celtics fans should be expecting this to be competitive. I mean, the Knicks finished how many wins higher than Orlando? Orlando won a game against Boston, and we won. We won 10 more games than the Orlando Magic. We have a superstar. We have two All-Stars, and we should be expected to win at least more than one game against these C's, fam. Yeah, it's going to come down to how does Tibbs handle it with the adjustments and all of that. Elliot says, agreed. Tibbs will have to run the double big lineup more often in this series. Yeah, we'll see. Do they deploy some of the hacker Mitch? I don't know if Missoula's going to do that as much, circumstances permitting with the early bonus. But yeah, I think, Mitchie's been averaging about 15 minutes. I think that has to go up. However, we'll see how Boston counter. Maybe they go small. The Knicks might be able to get that edge on the glass, but with the Celtics personnel, with Horford, Cornette, Porzingis, it's more up our alley in terms of cross matching. I think with double bigs. Buzzer asks, will it be Macau guarding Derek White or Jason Tatum? It'll be OG Anunoby guard Tatum. And in terms of Derek White, Macau, those two will most likely guard each other. Jaylen Brown will be guarding OG defensively. OG will be guarding Jason Tatum defensively, fam. And I do believe defensively, most likely it'll be Macau guard Jaylen Brown. It'll be Josh Hart or Macau guard Jaylen Brown. And I do feel like Derek White will guard Macau. Dirty Dancer says, if Deuce is struggling, Tibbs better get DeLon's size out there. Yeah, you already know what it is. One of my key adjustments after game 2 that we could look out for. And I'm only saying after game 2 because I think that's what Tibbs is waiting for. If it was up to me right now, I would seriously consider starting having DeLon Wright start the series in game 1 off the bench, as in automatically in the rotation for the first game. Cam Payne struggled after game 1 against Detroit, and I feel like the size is really necessary, for the switchability aspect of that one, fam. We've got a graphic on the lineups as well. The New York Knicks have the most played lineup, 5-man lineup of the playoffs so far, over 265 possessions. They are a plus 3.4 in those minutes. Brunson, Hart, Mikal, OG, and Karl Anthony Towns together have played the most possessions over the Denver Nuggets starting five, and they are a plus 3.4. The Boston Celtics are nowhere in this one. Obviously, they won their series in 5, and they didn't need to lean on those minutes as much. I'm going to pull up the box score right now of Boston's final clinching game against Orlando. If you look at it, Porzingis only played 21 minutes. Brown only played 31. Derek White only played 30. These guys are fresh. Hauser and Pritchard, they do play serious minutes, though, off their bench. I mentioned they're not very deep, but they do have 2 guards and wings off the bench in Hauser and Pritchard that sustain a big rotation in terms of heavier minutes, right? The Knicks don't have anyone off their bench that they play 25 minutes comfortably. Pritchard can do that, because he is 6-man. Our 6-man needs to show up. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. But yeah, look at Jason Tatum, 34 minutes. That is ideal. 35 points, plus 34, man. He killed them. Luke Cornett was a plus 23. Peyton Pritchard was a plus 29 in his minutes as well. We saw Torrey Craig play 4 minutes. And obviously Drew Holiday did not play in that one. And so they do lean on an 8-man. I think it'll be 9 with Cornett. Potentially Horford off the bench with Pritchard, Hauser as well. So, yeah, they are going to be more fresh. Obviously, the Knicks are the extra game. We are playing the most played lineup in terms of possessions as well. To Dirty Dance's point, man, I really want to see some DeLon Wright. I think Precious / PJ Tucker could be after game 2. Let's say the Knicks are trailing 0-2, headed back to MSG, and we need to make a serious adjustment. Look out for a potential Precious PJ Tucker. But I think to start the series, I would throw DeLon Wright out there, replace him, replace Campaign with him. I don't think we're going to see Tyler. I don't think we'll see Huck Porty. And I don't think we'll see Pacome Dardier. I think the 3 situationals that we might see for a key adjustment is DeLon Wright, PJ Tucker, or Precious Achiuwa. It's all going to depend on how the first 2 games go. Fam. Greetings from the ATL. Keith, great to have you with us. The chat's buzzing right now. We're hyped for this series. Lionel says, regardless of what happens in this series, I just want to be competitive. Knicks shock the world, beat the Celtics. I think as I'm getting closer to my prediction, I think we will see a very competitive series, guys. I think the Boston Celtics are in a situation now where obviously they've got a few guys dealing with some knocks. I do think that the last game of the regular season going to OT, I think the Knicks will gain some confidence from that. But obviously, the first 2 games in Boston, I think the 3 days rest is going to help the Knicks right now. Remember, after the Philly series last year, we only had basically a 1-day break, and we had to go straight into that Indiana series. But right now, it's a different story. I think the Knicks will get some rest, 3 days with chopped up film. I think four losses, that does paint the story that the Boston Celtics, are heavy favorites. But I do think we will see a very competitive series. I think the games will be a lot closer coming down the stretch. Execution, coaching from Tibbs, I think is going to be key. But yeah, I do think our biggest adjustment from the regular season will be to avoid the drop, especially early. Porzingis, Tatum, if you can limit their threes or make them more contested, the Knicks will be in the games. Shemus says, I never liked the dark blue unis. I don't mind them. I think it's cool to switch it up. I don't like the whites, the White City edition. I don't really like those as much. Michael Drake says, CT, we must talk about Tibbs. Must extend his bench. I don't know if he's going to extend it. I'll be open to switching it up. Put DeLon Wright out there. I think his size on the perimeter could be key. He could switch out. He could guard, your Holidays and Derek Whites a lot better, I think, with his size. But in terms of extending the rotation, fam, I don't see that happening with Tibbs. I don't see him going, deeper than 9. He's taken Shamet out of the rotation, so it's really down to 8. But look, I think he's going to give it game 1. Like I said before, if Deuce continues to struggle, if Cam Payne struggles in game 1, he might make an adjustment for game 2. But I don't think you make that adjustment right now, because you give those guys game 1. You give them game 1, you see how it looks. I think it's really going to frustrate those guys. If you bench Deuce right now and don't even give him a chance, I think that's going to cause some frustration. But yeah, you could definitely make a case for Wright over Cam. Lionel says our Celtics are not unbeatable. Definitely not. I think Orlando had some success. I think we're a better team. My next point offensively, guys, is to get threes up. Like I said, they averaged 31 3-point attempts in round 1. We averaged 30. If we can stick close to that, man, that'll be a big win for the New York Knicks. But something's telling me that the Celtics are definitely going to be looking to get more threes up. Like I said, 48 3-point attempts in the season, and they only averaged 31 in the first round. So it's all going to depend on how the Knicks can guard the 3. Avoid foul trouble, be physical, man. Cat, Hart, none of these boneheaded fouls. Tighten, save your defense for the second half. Tighten it up in the second half. But stay out of foul trouble, man, in the first half. We need Cat on the floor. We need Brunson, OG out of foul trouble. So yeah, that's key. The other key offensively, fam, is get Mikal Bridges and Cat going. The Knicks won't have a chance to win this series if Brunson doesn't have some help scoring the basketball, right? One of the keys to limiting Boston's transition is to score buckets of our own. If we're constantly bricking, it's going to be, straight down the other end, open 3 transition basket for Boston. So if we can get Mikal Bridges cooking, please get him the ball. Get him confident early in the series, get him cooking. Karl Anthony Towns, likewise. I really think that matchup on the offensive side for the Knicks could decide the series, not necessarily because Tatum's guarding him, but, we need Cat. We need all-star Cat. We need Thundercat. We need a guy that's 25 points a game minimum, and he'll be more engaged, I think, on the other side. Also, the more success Cat is having, the more Boston's defense is going to have to work, the more possibility that they'll get into foul trouble if they do want to guard him with a power forward. You know, Tatum is a power forward. You know, he's a combo forward, a wing, however you want to say it. But Karl Anthony Towns is a center, and we have to try to win that matchup, at least on the offensive side. Obviously, Cat's not going to be guarding Tatum on the other end, but if Tatum is guarding Cat, the Knicks should be looking at that as a sign of like, okay, this isn't disrespect, but this is a chess game. You know, this is a chess match, and the Knicks have to make the right move. You know, get Cat on the block and be physical with Jason Tatum. On that note, Thibodeau says at practice today regarding Karl Anthony Towns. Tibb says on whether or not Karl Anthony Towns needs to take more shots. Tibb says when there's a second or third defender coming, I don't want him to try to shoot over 3 people. I want him to make the pass. If he does that, he's helping his team. Right. What are your thoughts to that, guys? I got mixed feelings because I do feel like I like Cat's playmaking, but we didn't trade for Cat for his playmaking, right? Let's call a spade a spade. Karl Anthony Towns has to dominate. He has to be offensively aggressive like he was in Game 3. That's what shifted the series against Detroit. That's what ultimately won us the series. I think the key adjustment from Brunson, from Tibbs, from Cat to get Cat going, man. If Cat can have a couple of 30-point games, the Knicks have a chance in this series. If Cat doesn't score 30 points in any of these games, I think the Knicks might struggle, to win more than 2. So, the Thundercat, man, his second playoff series as a New York Knick, I thought he was, above average, was solid in the first round, but obviously, he can go to another level, I feel, in my opinion. In terms of Tibbs' stance, reading and reacting, I don't think they're going to be bringing a second or third defender to Cat anyway. I think they're confident with Tatum guarding him straight up. Like I said, whoever's guarding Hart, probably Porzingis, is probably going to be well and truly sagged off. They'll be sagged off Hart, and Porzingis will be that help defender. Cat has to make his move quick. He definitely has to make quick moves, quick decisions. Get that jump hook going, baby. Dirty says it's been a long time since we had a repeat champ. They look exhausted last year, and they will wear out this series or next. I've said it for a long time, man. I feel like they aren't as strong as they were last year. They're still very strong, but yeah, I think there's definitely a case to be made that Boston are more vulnerable than they were, man. But yeah, you guys are buzzing right now. I'm a little bit delayed in the chat, but I'm getting through as many as I can. Appreciate you all. No apologies for any question. I love the questions coming through. I was just specifically talking about the Tibbs job safe question. I just feel like we've been asked that quite a few times already. I think it's pretty clear the situation that Tibbs is in, man. He's coaching for his career right now. This is definitely the biggest stage right now. Joe Mazzulla is known to feel the pressure as well. He does give one-word answers. He gets feisty. He gets upset with his team. He won't argue as much as JB Bitterstaff, but he will take it out on his team. He will chew them out, I feel like. Player 1 says, I personally would give Shamet minutes. Get him to channel Evan. I think, the ability to get up threes, Shamet, it could be key. I don't know what to make of that because Tibbs took Shamet out of the rotation. I don't know if he's going to bring him in for a game 1. Maybe these 3 days off and practice might get some guys going. We'll see. One thing that I didn't like in one of these regular season games, I think it was in Boston. So it definitely wasn't the final game. It might have been the second to last game, but Shamit got absolutely bodied. He got bodied. Physically, they took advantage of him on the other end. So if Shamit does play, I need a physical. I need a physical version of Landry as well. Dorkosaurus Rex says our offense is too slow to generate clean looks. Can't beat the Celtics that way. They're much more offensively ancient. Much more offensively efficient by far. Yeah, no doubt. I think Boston's efficiency is in their ability to get mismatches, play with speed, and yeah, that's why I said my keys to the Knicks having success is just to shoot a high percentage. Get high percentage looks, get back in transition. Cat, if you fall to the ground, get back into the play. Second, third, fourth efforts, I think is what Tibbs is going to preach. Buzzer says, yeah, we have to move the ball too, definitely. First 3 quarters, I think we will see some better ball movement. I guess it depends how they're going to guard us, especially Hart as a facilitator, sort of screen setting guy. But fourth quarter stuff, if the game is close, I expect us to resort back to a slower pace, with Brunson. But we'll see, what Drew Holiday looks like. If he really is not 100%, I think the Knicks could capitalize. The Knicks could capitalize on that. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, most of you guys seem open to the DeLon Wright situation. Campaign, undersized. If he's not dishing or swishing, what is he doing? I know Cam's been swishing most of the season more than dishing. But if he ain't doing either, I think it's time to have a seat. What do you guys think? I think the Knicks don't have a chance to win this series if we don't defend. Right. Yeah, offense is important. But we could make this a slower, grinded out series. This could be a 105, 108, I think Tibbs has the ability to sort of slow things down a bit. This is the playoffs. But if the Knicks can't defend and Boston are putting up 120 easily, this series will be over in 5 or 6, right? The Knicks have to defend. So enter DeLon Wright. Yeah, he's not as offensive, aggressive as Cam, but he's a guy that can definitely win a one-on-one matchup defensively. He can get in passing lanes. He can fight over screens. He can get, his hand in between. But if you ask me a prediction, I don't think we'll see any shake-up for game 1. I think any major rotation changes will come at least after, the first 2. I think Tibbs will look at the first 2 like, these are my guys. These guys got me here. Cam, Deuce, you guys just going to have to, come to play. If they stink it up in the first 2, then I think, Tibbs might be like, you know what, we're down 0-2. We're potentially down 0-2. I'm going to make an adjustment. But hey, like I said, the key to the series is stealing one in Boston. I think the first 2 games are the best chance. I think as the series goes, Boston might have more film. They might get more confident. I trust their coach to make more adjustments than ours. But I think the Knicks' best chance is to steal one on the first, in the first 2. Obviously, as the series goes, the Knicks are going to be more, they're going to be more gassed. Our series went 6. Their series went 5. They've had about, I don't know, man, 5 days rest now. They've had 5-6 days rest. We've had 3 days rest. So we must strike early, and definitely, hopefully, we punch first, man. Like New York Knicks, gritty. The gritty 90s squad would hit first, make them feel us, know that they're in for a series right from the get-go. I think once they can start second-guessing things, that'll be great. That would be great. Dorkosaurus Rex says I would be thrilled to see DeLon Wright in this series, but it's Tibbs. Yeah, I feel like he's already preconceived the rotations. Once Cam got healthy, he sort of pushed DeLon Wright aside. In the regular season. Player one says I don't think extra physicality is necessarily needed, just someone to make some shots. Yeah, that's fair. I think we don't know. I think they might tighten the whistle a lot more in this one. And that goes into my frustrations with the NBA. They're more than happy to let Orlando muddy it up and beat down on Boston. They're more than happy for the less talented Detroit Pistons to scratch, claw, and beat down on the New York Knicks. But once it gets to the second round and it's two skillful teams against each other, they're going to go back to normal. They're going to go back to officiating it more tight. That's just the way the NBA is, man. It's the WWE, really. But yeah, to my first point, I think this series is going to be a lot more free flowing. I don't think Boston are going to pick us up full court, especially with Drew Holiday on a bum hamstring. Now, certain possessions, Derek White might, get up 3/4, press Brunson a little bit, but it's definitely not going to be to the level that Detroit were doing with Schroeder, with Osar Thompson and those guys trying to wear Brunson down. I think you've seen now, you can't wear Brunson down. You're just wearing yourself down at the end of the day, man. Brunson's been through the fire over and over and over ever since he was a kid, man. We see that video, 14-year-old JB being put through the ringer like Rocky Balboa by his pops, Rick Brunson, as well. And you see Brunson on a bum ankle, losing his balance. It doesn't matter. Press full court. It does not matter, man. Brunson will be there in the fourth quarter to get buckets. The best way to stop Brunson is to bring another man, right? You can't stop this man 1v1. You just can't, man. You could put Kelly Oubre on him. You could put Osar Thompson. You could put Jesus Christ on him. You're not stopping Jalen Brunson, man. 1v1. You have to bring another man. I don't think Boston are going to do that. And that could be the series, here with Brunson getting a chance to continue that, crazy streak of 30, 40-point games, Michael Jordan-esque, Kobe-esque with this thing. Dorkosaurus says, I'm worried Deuce hasn't played well versus the Celtics at all either. Yeah, look, my biggest worry, it extends beyond Deuce. It's size. Deuce has always just been undersized against Boston. He's been good for the shot making. One of the games he got hot in Boston, we're definitely going to need Deuce to hit shots, but I'm worried on the other side, Schroeder has cooked him. Peyton Pritchard has cooked him in the past. TJ McConnell has cooked Deuce in the past as well, man. Deuce is kind of losing that defensive stopper reputation right now. So I hope that he can sort of get some of that chip back, man. Eye of the Tiger once again from Deuce McBride. Fortunately for him, he's not a free agent because I feel like he would have been losing some money. But Deuce has still got another year on his contract, I think, after this year. Maybe another 2 years. But basically, yeah, Deuce, he's going to get a chance. But, I think Tibbs will shrink the rotation even more if he's not playing well, right? There's no margin for error in this one, guys. There's no room for sentiment because the Boston Celtics will end that series early if our bench is just non-existent, And so how much of a leash should Tibbs have? I think you see how these guys look in the first half. If they're getting cooked, then you got to shake things up a bit, man. Once again, something tells me we will see a DeLon Wright in this series at some point. I think his experience could be a blessing. He's been there. He can handle the ball. He doesn't get flustered. He's his good high assist to turnover ratio. You know, the thing we saw in the end of game 6, man, Mikal Bridges turned it over. Deuce was a walking turnover. Campaign was a walking transition up the other end with his missed floater. You know, we have to be steady. We have to be steady with the rock. I'm also looking at Hart. I'm looking at Karl Anthony Towns, you know, throwing those passes to Mitch under the basket. You know, we have to be worried about that, fam. One thing we don't want Boston to do is get going in transition, man, at the TD Garden. You know, once it gets to a 10-point double-digit deficit, you know, it's going to be tough to claw back. However, yeah, if the Knicks can punch first, fight, start great, you know, maybe get an early lead, hey, game on. You know, game on. Silk says CT, NBA don't reseed for next round. Why OKC playing either 4 or 5 instead of the 6 Wolves? So yeah, the Oklahoma City Thunder won the first round. So yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is, man. I'm not sure what the deal is with that one. I'm really not. I appreciate it though. Appreciate the question. I don't know some of the things the NBA does, man. It doesn't have a rhyme or reason. My prediction is, and I hope this doesn't happen, but I think they're ultimately going to either combine the conferences in terms of the playoffs, or they're going to introduce a third conference, fam, and they're going to shorten the playoff qualification. Let's say when Seattle, maybe Mexico City, maybe Vegas come in, I think the NBA is going to do one of two things. They're going to merge the conferences for playoff seeding, 1 to 16, or they're going to create a third conference, man, and maybe to qualify for the playoffs, it'll be top 6. Maybe it'll be top 6 in all 3 conferences, and the rest just go straight to Cancun with that one. AP says McBride has been sick all year, and every time you hear about him, he's sick. I think, yeah, he's been dealing with some of the leg complaint. I think, was it ankle or knee? But yeah, he definitely had an interrupted end to the season, and that could be I think that's a big factor. I think Deuce is much better than what we're seeing, no doubt about it. I just do think that he just hasn't been able to get his rhythm, man. The playoffs start, and it's literally game 1. You gotta produce, especially if your name is Deuce. Right now, he really is our 6th man. At times he's our 5.5.5 starting player in the past. But right now, he had an underwhelming series and we still won. I think it would have ended in 5 if Deuce was Deuce. Now, between Deuce, Payne, or Shamet, one of those guys has to step up. One of them, man. At least one of them. In terms of, I'm talking about scoring 12 to 15 points. On efficiency. That is the major key. So yeah, as we get to the predictions coming up right now, get Mikal and Cat going. I think you guys all know, man, when Mikal is getting buckets, I like that matchup. If he's going up against Derek White, that could be a flip of a coin. We'll see how that goes. But obviously, Karl Anthony Towns versus, Tatum, I think, on the offensive side is key. Defensively, Tatum is going to be guarded by OG. Defensively, Cat is going to obviously have to guard maybe Jaylen Brown. What do you guys think? Maybe have Josh Hart guard Porzingis, because you don't really want Cat guarding, Porzingis on the perimeter, fam. So maybe you put Hart on Porzingis, and those two guard each other, offense and defense. Maybe you put Karl Anthony Towns on Jaylen Brown, and we see how that plays out. Brown, obviously not the 3-point shooter that Porzingis is, but he'll still be, a threat, and looking to get, Cat out on the perimeter. OG will definitely be glued to Tatum. So as I get to my predictions, man, Shokan says, who you got winning this series, right? My head says Boston. I think Boston are most likely to win the series. But like I said in the first round, I'll take it 2 games at a time. I think if the Knicks can win one of the first 2, I think it's series on, man. So I think the Knicks' best chance is in 7. I do think that the most likely situation is that the Celtics end up winning it in 6. I think the Celtics end up winning in 6. A competitive series. I think, obviously the Knicks can't afford to get blown out for Thibodeau's sake. I think the Knicks' best chance will be in 7 if they can win one of the first 2. Yeah, let's see how it plays out. You got to win one of the first 2. If the Knicks don't win one of the first 2, it's just a matter of when the Celtics will win it. Actually, outside of an injury. Now, if the Celtics win the first 2, but let's say Jaylen Brown or Drew Holiday, miss time, then that opens the door for maybe the Knicks to win their 2 at MSG and maybe extend that series. But yeah, I feel like one of the first 2 will come down to the wire. That's my other prediction. One of these first 2 games will come down to the wire. It's more than likely to be the first one because both teams haven't really, figured each other out just yet. I think, maybe there'll be a surprise in terms of a small adjustment or a wrinkle, and it'll take some time to adjust. So I think the Knicks' best chance, to take one in the first 2. You never know. Some players just get hot in game 1. Maybe it's OG that just can't miss from downtown early and gives the Knicks a halftime lead. Maybe it's Karl Anthony Towns that seems to get Jason Tatum in foul trouble, or he gets hot. Maybe he gets hot early. Maybe they leave Josh Hart wide open and he's been practicing his threes for 3 days now, and he swishes 2 of his first 3. And it forces Boston, into an adjustment as well, man. I feel like, the first game is going to be insane. I'm hyped. I think if the Knicks can limit the threes from Porzingis and Tatum, that's the key to winning the series, man. They've cooked us all season. Porzingis with the deep threes, he's going to try to get in rhythm early, man. I feel like we need a guy out there on the perimeter guarding him. What do you guys think about Josh Hart guarding Porzingis? Monkey wrench salute. Almost had a heart attack last game. Yet not because it was close, but that Jalen cross and shot was amazing. Let's go Knicks. Yeah, you and me both. These close games could go either way, because the Knicks can throw it away. They can fumble the pass just like Beasley did. But we can also swish just like Brunson did as well, man. We have a closer, and I can't wait to see how this plays out. This is a series we wanted to see, man, last year. This is going to give the Knicks a lot to go off in coming into the off season. Either way, I feel like Boston are the team that we really need to supplant to win that NBA chip. How the Knicks deploy Mitchell Robinson will answer a lot of questions about the pathway headed into the summer, and and what are we going to do with the 4-5 spot with Karl Anthony Towns. We see Rudy Gobert absolutely beasting in the other game. Are the Knicks going to fully commit to a Cat at the 4, Mitchell Robinson, Demon, rim protector at the 5? Are the Knicks going to commit to that long term, or are we going to run it back like we did this season and continue to start Cat? I don't think Josh Hart can be long term, in the starting lineup. I think for the Knicks to take that next step. But this series could be a chance to prove people wrong, could be that chance, to prove the doubters wrong. And I feel like, it's us against the world right now. New York versus Boston. This is going to, kill in the ratings, man. It's the only game on Monday night. There's no other game. Obviously, the New York Knicks are now in the Elite Eight, the final 8 of the NBA remaining. Everyone else gone fishing. So all eyes are going to be on this matchup, man. I hope more than anything that the first 2 games are tight. They're great. They're close. Superstars back and forth. Like I said, I think this series is going to be more free-flowing. None of that muddying it up like Detroit and Orlando were doing. Boston don't need to pick us up full court. They'll be confident in their ability to guard in the half court and get stops and get out in transition. But yeah, man, Drew Holiday, I think that's a major key, right? So as I get to the final segment of the stream, salute guys in the building, Knicks Nation, smash that like button. My official prediction is Celtics in 6. My official prediction, Boston in 6. I think the Knicks win a game in Boston, and I think the Knicks win a game at MSG. So I think that is something to really build on, and move ahead. Some of these games could be close. Maybe we lose a heartbreaker. My heart's telling me that the Knicks can make it go 7, but I do think Celtics in 6. My X factor for the series, guys, is Josh Hart. Josh Hart. What do we do with Josh Hart in this one? His ability to, make them pay when they sag off, whether he hits shots or whether he creates for others with his player movement, screen setting as a hub. His ability to crash the glass is going to be key as well. His ability to get loose balls, second, third, fourth efforts, scramble plays, all of that is where the Knicks could get that edge, if we do need to dirty it up a bit and get grimy. Josh Hart's that guy. So my official X factor is Josh Hart, man. My official X factor for the first round was Mikal. Was Mikal Bridges, and obviously in Game 6, that was key. My prediction was Knicks in 6 against Detroit. That came to fruition as well. My wild card for this series coming up against Boston is Deuce Miles McBride, man. There's been people calling him Miles now, saying that he doesn't deserve to be called Deuce, right? I think Deuce is going to come good. He's my wild card. I think he's going to be having people calling him Deuce again. I think Deuce is strong. He's strong mentally, just like Brunson. He's been through the ups and downs at Wichita State. Sorry, not Wichita State, West Virginia. Through his come up with West Virginia and basically his rise in the league. We haven't really seen Deuce down for too long. He's hit some rough periods, but he's bounced back. And so I'm expecting Deuce to come good. And look, if you don't take that matchup personally, you never will. Him versus Peyton Pritchard, the official reigning 6th man of the year. That's what Deuce McBride needs to be really targeting. Like I said, he's going to be a free agent at one point. He's going to be looking to get, generational wealth and security. He's been on a low, a low earning contract. This series could be the Deuce McBride show. National spotlight, national TV every single game, right? If he's getting cooked by Peyton Pritchard, that's not going to be good. That's not going to be good for the Deuce business. And so hopefully he comes correct in this one. What's good, Johnny? Elliot says Knicks are more than capable of stealing a game in Beantown, but I just don't see Tibbs making the necessary adjustments consistently to make it happen. Yeah, I think the Knicks' best pathway is not coaching. I think it's the players just being good, executing smartly, learning from the 4 losses. Elliot, 100% agree with the coaching. I do think there's a gap there's a skill gap in the coaching, but I think if the Knicks haven't learned anything from the 4 L's against Boston, that should be on the players as well. They've gone up against these guys 100 times now. You know, everybody knows what Kristaps Porzingis' strength is. Everybody knows what Jason Tatum likes to do. What his tendencies are. This 7-game series is like just basically an continuation of the 4-game regular season series. If these guys continue to commit the same boneheaded, turnovers and plays, then that's also on the players. So yeah, I need these guys to adjust. I need these guys to execute. Monkey Wrench says Josh needs to make teams pay for leaving him wide open. I hope he's practicing that 3-ball, or at a minimum, take a step in and shoot the 2. He needs to capitalize on those open shots. 100%. That's why, he's my X factor as well, fam. And to Hart's credit, don't forget about the loose balls, the transition baskets, Josh Hart is our best player in transition. He will give Boston problems, If they want to match Porzingis on Hart and have him sag off, what if Hart gets the rebound and he pushes the break? Then someone is going to have to, get a body on Hart. Porzingis ain't going to be able to scramble on Hart and close him down in transition. So it goes both ways. If they want to cross match a big onto Hart and sag off, then like you said, Hart needs to make them pay. He needs to, dirty it up defensively, get strips, get a steal, get out on the break. The Knicks' ability to get cheap points in this one will be key. It can't be a grind. It can't be too much of a grind, fam. Hart's that X factor, and he can finish in transition. He can finish over Holiday, Hart, off White. Sorry, he could go at Jaylen Brown or Tatum and get them into foul trouble as well. Also, Mikal. I would agree if some people still have Mikal as another X factor, because you talk about White guarding him. If Mikal comes to play like he did in Game 6 and he's aggressive, able to take it to the rack, get some free throws, that's gravy. In fact, he needs to do that. He needs to try to get them in foul trouble, be aggressive, take the attention away from Brunson. Monkey Wrench Built says, I'd argue to the point that the Knicks need to be the aggressors physically as well. Yeah, especially if they do go a Cornet Horford situation, we're going to have to definitely, call upon Mitchie and get in the weight room with our bigs, fam. Get these guys in foul trouble. I think that's a win for the Knicks. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're going to have to carry the Celtics offensively, and if we're putting them in more actions on the other end, that's going to hopefully wear them down or get them in foul trouble. At least second guess the way they can defend. For example, let's say Tatum has 3 fouls at the half. By the half he has 3 fouls. The Knicks could come out in the third quarter and say, okay, you can't put Tatum on Cat anymore. Otherwise, we're gonna feed it to Cat on the block. And then Cat can get aggressive on the block. If Tatum's guarding Cat with 3 fouls, the Knicks need to try to capitalize. They'll try to capitalize on that. Then the Boston Celtics might try to adjust and put Tatum on Hart, and say, all right, Cat's cooking a bit. Porzingis, go guard Cat. We'll try to hide Tatum on Josh Hart. And Tatum can be the help defender and sag off. Then Hart's going to have to be aggressive. You see, at the end of the day, the Boston Celtics have a lot of adjustments that they can make. They can keep adjusting to whatever the Knicks do. The Knicks just have to be better at what they do. They have to out-execute. Johnny says, what's sad about Tibbs' thin rotation is guys that got the Knicks here have no chance of proving their mettle. Guys that got the Knicks here, I think everyone's kind of contributed in certain ways, but Cam Payne's kind of that guy where if he doesn't have it going early, I need to see DeLon Wright, man. I think the floor is higher with DeLon Wright. The ceiling is probably higher with Cam because he can get hot, he can stretch the defense out. Maybe you save Cam for the home games, where the crowd's going crazy. But I think I made this point in the post game of Game 6. When Cam Payne's putting up bad shots on the road, it's a recipe for disaster because the other crowd gets into it, and then we have to call Brunson off the bench. I need steady play from our point guards. Monkey with Wrench Built says, X factor for me, one of the 3 Deuce, Shamit or Cam, someone has to give us 11 to 16 off the pine. Yeah, definitely, you said it. I feel like Deuce is that guy. He's had some good games against Boston. Shamit, I'm not as confident in. Maybe some people are. Cam Payne, I'm just not as confident in right now, man. He struggles with the size, he struggles getting that shot. The only time he can really get that 3-point shot off is in transition. We look at the 3 games once again. The 3 games against the Celtics, right? First game was a blowout, 132-109. Game 2, 131-104. Another blowout. Game 3, 118-105. Another blowout. And we all know Game 4, man, was close, and the Knicks should have won, but obviously with an asterisk on both sides. Mitchell Robinson didn't play in any of the first 3. Could Mitchie be the X factor as well, guys? I think it comes down to Hart, maybe Deuce, Mikal, and Mitch as the X factors. Right. One of these guys is going to have to put their imprint on this series and say, hey, Boston, you didn't account for us. Now you have to account for us. Somebody else has to do that right now. Because Boston are accounting for Cat. They're accounting for Brunson. They're going to account for OG Anunoby. They may not necessarily be accounting for Mitch, Hart, Deuce, or Mikal. And one of those guys has to say, no, you have to account for us now. Right? We've just dominated this stretch of this game for 8 minutes. Whether it's Mitch, get a couple of blocks, a key rebound and put back. Whether it is Hart, killing them in transition, getting a rebound or a steal, and getting out and helping the Knicks get on an 8-0 run to even the score up. But yeah, definitely I love it, man. You guys are on point. Salvador says Cam, playoff vet. He won game 1. Cat won 1. JB won 1. Mikal won 1. The closeout. Yeah, different guys have stepped up. Payne deserves his flowers, for game 1. But like I said, I feel like Cam plays well at MSG on the road. It's a tricky proposition, man. On that note, as well, right? As a wild card, maybe not, but the Knicks have Anton Watson, who's obviously a two-way player. He's not eligible to play in the series, but he spent a portion of the season in that Celtics locker room, man. And so, I don't know, obviously there is everything there is to know about Boston. That's all on film, man. They are the reigning champions, but you just never know, man. Johnny Bryant went to Cleveland, and Cleveland looked to have the wood over us. Obviously passed on some intel. Who knows? Who knows what Anton Watson can help out with in terms of what the Celtics are looking for. Maybe some of their play calling, maybe some of their adjustments. Who knows, man? But that is one potential thing to keep an eye out for as well, man. But yeah, we got to guard the three, fam. So to capitalize, wrap things up, I think the Celtics will ultimately win it in 6. I think if the Knicks can win one of the first 2, we have a chance to make this a 7-game series, man. And I think if this series is a hard-fought 6 or 7, with the Knicks still able to make roster upgrades in the summer, and the Boston Celtics looking to potentially shed salary and trade a Porzingis or trade a Drew Holiday, I think the Knicks' chances are opening up, man. I think the window is opening up now. We just have to take advantage and knock down that door right now, man. Take the throne, man. Take the bull by the horn and say, hey, we are to be taken seriously, and we can match up. We can go head to head. So it's going to be a battle of skill and will and adjustments. But like I said, I want to see us learn from the first 4 games, because Boston and the Knicks, we know what they like to do. It's like, can we take that away? Can we limit that? Right? The Tatum threes. Boston, they're going to be looking to put up 35, 40 point, 43 point attempts. That's key. Building blocks as styles of play matter. Melo says my hopes will go up when they get rid of Tibbs, period. Case closed. CT, we need you to coach. Appreciate that, fam. Hopefully, man, one day I'll take being an assistant, maybe even a video coordinator with this thing. But yeah, my first point on the graphic down below is just win as many matchups as possible, right? How many of these 50-50 matchups can we make in our favor, right? Like I said, the Deuce Peyton Pritchard matchup, right? You got to give the edge to Peyton Pritchard the way things are going right now. Horford, Cornette versus Mitch, right? Who can win that, right? If we can win that matchup, tick. The Porzingis Hart matchup, if that can be a wash and just be 50-50, that could be a win for the Knicks. Obviously Tatum, we know what he's going to do. But if we can say, all right, Karl Anthony Towns gave you 30, JT gave us 35, and maybe we say Cat gave you 30, right? But played solid defense. That could be a scratch. OG Brown, I genuinely believe the Knicks have a chance to win that matchup. Is in the OG Anunoby defensively, whoever is guarding, being more impactful, and then also scoring to the level that Jaylen Brown is going to score. Brunson versus Drew Holiday. If Brunson doesn't win that matchup, the Knicks don't have a chance. So, I'm looking for Brunson to make life difficult for Drew Holiday and get him in foul trouble. Maybe we will see some of that foul manipulating narrative come back. All of these games are on the national TV, but Drew Holiday ain't at 100%, man. He's day to day right now, and he's dealing with hamstring issues. We know how tricky that is. Ladies and gentlemen, hamstrings don't repair overnight, man. It could take one little tweak, one little twinge or stretch, and the hamstring, you're back to square one again. And, the Knicks need to put him through the ringer, you know. Enter Jalen Bryant, Kobe Brunson into the equation, man. Like I said, man, he's built for it. And, they're definitely going to, try whatever they can. But JB is built for this, man. The back page of Newsday today got Leon Rose, man, embracing Jalen Brunson during the walk-off after the series clinching win in Detroit, fam. I mean, this is Brunson's opportunity to say, hey, like, these games are under a spotlight, and now I'm going toe-to-toe, potentially outdueling a Tatum, potentially putting the Knicks on his back to beat or compete against the reigning champions. That's going to put Brunson in another stratosphere in terms of the way he's looked at. Elliott says Mitch and Precious need to be in the post on offense. Hart needs to shoot those wide open J's or drive to the basket for a handoff or a lob. Yeah, be that facilitating hub. Definitely. Stanley says the first game in Boston is very important. We need to steal the first one. Yeah, I agree. One of the first two, like you said. The Knicks need to carry over that chip from losing 4 in a row. I know this is like a clean slate. I know this is the playoffs now, and you don't need any more motivation. But the Knicks really need to come into game one like, we've lost to this team 4 times in a row. Let's end that. Let's end that streak today, right now. This is game one, but you beat us 4 in a row. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting that happen, man. And I'll be there for it, man. It'll be scenes if the Knicks can close it out in game one. Close out game one. Building blocks as our bench is putrid. Pritchard is going to cook or try and cook us. Yeah, pride is on the line. Deuce has been cooked for a minute. He needs to come to play. Pritchard, Hauser, they're going to push the pace. Their bench is definitely not going to be looking to half court. They're going to be looking to push. Get transition baskets. We'll see what the Knicks defense can cook up right now. There's one thing, going back to the Tibbs job question, there's one thing that could save Tom Thibodeau's job is if he can cook up a defensive masterclass that he's capable of doing, previously. Tibbs got his name as a defensive coach, a specialist, not just a defensive coach, but a defensive specialist right now. There's one thing that can save his job is if he can cook up a masterclass, right? But obviously the players are going to have to, do the most part and execute. Stanley says, I'll be surprised if Precious plays at all. Yeah, Precious will be a game 3 or 4 scenario. I don't think he's going to dust these dudes off on the road. I think he's going to try to carry that strength, camaraderie from the road game in Detroit and bring those guys straight into the hostile environment of Boston because they're ready. They're ready for it. And by the way, hopefully they get those layup lines going as well, right? End of the halftime, third quarter layup lines, get those going as well. They worked out, right? Get those guys loose. RMK, so Celtics are just a horrible matchup for the Knicks. Celtics in 6, I feel. That's my prediction. Obviously, this is one where I hope to be wrong. I'm just using logic. Obviously, my heart tells me Knicks in 7. But I'll also say this, like I said in round 1, I'll take it 2 games at a time. If the Knicks can win one of the first 2 games, it's a series. It's a real series, and it's going to go 6 or 7 if the Knicks can win one of the first 2. Could the series end in 5? I'm not prepared to entertain that. I'm not going to entertain that right now. I think this thing goes 6. I think there's enough vulnerability in Boston to, maybe take their foot off the gas, maybe, you know, circumstances like Holiday or Brown misses a game. The Knicks just getting more in rhythm, as the playoffs continue, the confidence that they'll build from round one. I don't think this ends in 5. I just don't see it. I think 6. Hopefully, we're talking about a 7, man. How crazy would that be, right? If this thing goes 7, there'll be games that could have gone either way, and regardless, 7 would break records, ratings, and it would definitely have things crazy, with the block party. Appreciate you guys, man. Smash that like button. We'll be here all series, man. Talking to some guests that we're gonna have on as well. Fun series. Let's enjoy it, man. This has been the preview. I think the Knicks' pathway to success: take one of the first 2, but guard the 3-point line and be smart in transition. But the Knicks have to hit baskets. They have to avoid transitions. Get efficient looks, move the ball and try to use their physicality, man. There's no reason OG can't be physical with Brown offensively. Go at him. There's no reason Karl Anthony Towns shouldn't be physical trying to go at Tatum or Porzingis. These guys are human, man. They're vulnerable. They're they're no more vulnerable than we are. They can get an injury, they could get foul trouble, etc., etc. They'll be trying to close this series out early as well. They're probably looking ahead to Cleveland. There's one thing the Knicks won't be doing is we won't be looking at Cleveland. In this series, we're fully focused on Boston. Possibly Boston might take their foot off the gas. Let's say they did win game 1 comfortably. The narrative is going to be that that it's going to be easy, and that they might start looking to Cleveland, and we might come back, punch back in game 2. Boston can take their focus, lose their focus a bit. I think they've done that. The Magic could have taken 2 games off them. I think that's a good starting point as well, guys. Mets Nick says we better go 6 or 7. If not, Tommy is gone. I think it depends how the games look as well. If these are like, old school classic, fight it out, flip of a coin games, then credit to Tibbs. We are at a talent disadvantage. I think slightly. We are at a talent disadvantage. But if the games are like flip of a coin, back and forth, then credit to Tibbs obviously as well, and the players for executing. But like I said, I don't think Boston's like a super deep team. If we're getting stomped by their bench, then there's serious problems. We obviously know the Knicks have to upgrade their bench, but if we're getting stomped by Pritchard, Hauser, and Cornette, Horford, maybe Torrey Craig, and 1 or 2 of their starters in the game, then that will be embarrassing. And that's why I want us to play some more defensive lineups. Play some DeLon Wright. I don't know if PJ Tucker or Precious, out of those 2. I don't know who's more favored by Thibodeau. I would probably guess that Precious is probably slightly ahead of PJ because he's a younger, more athletic body. But I mean, does it mean that the series is going badly downhill if 1 or 2 of those 2, get time? Most likely. If we do see PJ Tucker or Precious Achua, it's probably going to mean that things aren't going well. I would like to think that Mitchell Robinson and the rest of the starters can handle their business. But I would like to see DeLon Wright because he can switch. He can guard some 1, 2, and 3s. I think that would help. That would help for the Knicks' rotation sake. in that aspect. Let me just see if we've missed anything. So, X Factor, Josh Hart, wild card is Deuce McBride. I think the 2 days rest after game 2 is going to be a good situation where if the Knicks have taken a game, they can get some rest. I think that will be key. Obviously, we know we're going to be playing more heavy minutes, I think, than the Celtics will be. Brunson's going to be averaging 40 minutes in this series. There's no doubt. Whereas I think Tatum might only average 35, 36. Porzingis only needs to play 30 minutes, because they've got Horford, Cornet. But you don't know. Maybe Mitchie starts to dominate. Cornet has a few bad games, and maybe they start to get nervous. Either way, man, it's Knicks or no one. The New York Knicks have a chance to shock the world and earn more respect, right? We earned some respect after Game 6, after playing around with our food. But the New York Knicks now are up against the number 2 seed. In this one, we are the underdogs. And I think this Knicks squad, would prefer to be in that underdog role and take it to the favorite, right? Built for this? Let's see. I know Jalen Brunson is built for this. Cat, OG, Hart, Mikal, Mitch, Deuce, what have you got? Thibodeau. Let's see what they've got, man. This could make or break the off season. Let's enjoy it, man. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a competitive series. It'll be more free-flowing, less stuck in mud, like the 2 first rounds. But this could be a chess match, man. A game of inches, adjusting, executing, and hopefully staying out of foul trouble, man. No boneheaded plays, turnovers. Got to clean that up. Don't give up some easy threes and stay in the games, man. Even if it's below double digits, the Knicks can always fight back. The Knicks have shown that they can come from behind and make a big run. But if they stay below 10, the game is on, man. They'll be looking to try to close us out early, punch first. The TD Garden crowd is going to really get into it. And the Knicks just can't lose their cool, man. So I think, game 1 is going to be telling in terms of what version of the Celtics we're going to be up against. I'm predicting that Drew Holiday will play. I think they will, he's day-to-day. I think they're trying to kind of dress it down a bit. I think Jaylen Brown looks like he'll play. He's 100%, he feels, or getting closer to 100%. So it should be fun, man. Big up to the chat. I see you. Thanks for the questions, the thoughts, the comments. And let's do it, man. Let's do it. Some of the keys, obviously the 3-point attempts. Boston shooting 48 in the regular season, 31 the last round. Can the Knicks shrink those 3-point attempts from Boston and limit that? Because they're going to try to get them up. But the Orlando Magic have a lot of length with their wings, with Franz Wagner, Paolo. The Knicks wings and the centers are going to have to be up on the perimeter to try to stop the firepower of Boston. So peace, everyone. We'll get it on Monday, post-game live, and see you there.